Yo, it's Captain, bringing you a Star Rail Captain Log 2.2-6. And that is the sixth time we have played 2.2. We're doing the main story, the Trailblaze mission, and today was the big day. We got the thing they've been plastering all over the place. We got the hat. We got the hat. I'll delay it a little bit in case you don't know what the hat is. I don't know. Somehow you're watching this and don't know what the hat is. I'll delay it a little bit. But that's pretty much what it was. That was pretty much the whole time. It was Misha in the child's dream was the scene. Because we left off right last time, right at the start of that scene, and by the time we finished that scene, there was some game stuff we had to do, and then that was all the time we had. So it really was just that scene. There's like one final conclusion scene that we didn't see because I did check, and if we had started it, it would have done one of those 30 minutes of just straight like autoplay content of like 15 different scenes, because what they do, am I going to complain about this now? What they do is when they finish a scene, they also automatically start the next scene as a narrative device to kind of keep you hooked. But it makes it really hard to do things like play a chapter and stop, or stream a chapter and stop. Chapter is in just like scene, not the, I mean, all of Penacony is technically a chapter, but right, because it's like I would have liked to seen the little conclusion of that, but the conclusion of that like goes into the next thing, which goes into the next thing, and next thing, and next thing, and then finally you're into the next gameplay section. It would have just been too much, because I didn't have time to do it all. So that is essentially where we stopped. We saw the dream. We then come out of the dream and give our response to Sunday. Because if you recall, the start to all this is Sunday has his big monologue. We talked about that yesterday. And he's telling you about how he thinks order is better than harmony. And if he can trap everyone in the dream, I think he even implies he intends to trap the entire cosmos in the dream, not just the people on Penacony. He wants to trap all of reality in the dream, and then they will then since reality is the source of suffering, everyone will be forced into the dream, and they'll just live just infinite Sundays, infinite weekends, and they'll be happy and never have to worry about anything. And Firefly pushes back and says, that's still just an escape. You're not just taking away, the chance for them to run into problems. You're taking away the chance for them to overcome their problems and grow and become stronger. And he scoffs. I did went back and figured out what she's like. Do you think I'm one of the weak that needs this? And he scoffs. That's what his response was. I was trying to remember that yesterday. And she says, well, I don't think I'm weak. Then Himiko says, all right, we're going to give you our response. And, Kalis, the main character, I picked the boy, tell him what Mikhail said. And then instead of telling, you start to speak, and then it takes you to another flashback. And you flashback to the child's dream with Misha. And you're like, what? So this whole thing is to set up the response you're going to give to Sunday. So that's what we did. We did that. We would play through that dream, and we gave the response Sunday, and it's awesome. And I think I'm just going to show it to you. I looked up. I looked up some footage on YouTube. I'll link you the thing in the description when we get there. Well, I mean, I guess it'll be there now, but because it's a really cool scene. And if I use my footage, it won't make sense because I'm talking over it. I want you to hear it. And also, I didn't know the big scene was coming. I was doing like my leg exercises, so I'm like bobbing up and down the whole thing. Super distracting. I watched it back and I was like, oh my god, this is mega cringe. But I didn't know it was a cool cutscene. I had to do my leg exercise. And once I get going, I just finish them. Otherwise, I'd have to think about it too much. Whatever. So I found it on YouTube. Several people graciously have put up cool cutscenes on YouTube, so I'll do that, and I'll link them down in the description. If I have forgotten, please tell me, and I'll get it in there. but I shouldn't. So that sets up the flashback. So what is the flashback? I took extensive notes on this flashback. I even have to scroll through them. I've took so many notes. I actually like spent way too long doing these notes. I shouldn't have done it. It took all this time I didn't have. I was actually running early, and then I decided because. But why did I do it? It was I shouldn't do it again. But why did I do it? Because it was a really kind of confusing scene, and it had, but not like in a bad way. Like it's a layered scene of really interesting things and twists, and then by the end of it, it's revealed what it's been telling you. But you didn't know that the entire time you're going through. So as I was watching it back, I was like, "Oh my god, it was here the whole time, right? It was all the hints were there, everything like all the pieces fell into place, and it made a lot of sense." And so I was like, I really want to make sure I get these notes so that I get this right for people. But I think all it did was make me really late. And now my notes are so big. It's even like what I can't even make sense of this. There's so many notes. So so here we are. But how do I want to present this? Do I want to like tell you the twist and then walk you through it knowing the twist? Or do I want to do it chronologically so we can so we can have the twist? I think, you know what? I'll do it chronologically because the twist is actually fun. And I think I could do it. I think I can give the appropriate foreshadowing, so it'll make sense. So, what are we doing? We are in the child's dream with Misha. Himiko tells us that she talked to people on the dream bubble because we have an empty dream bubble. The Watchmaker's legacy to the future Trailblaze was an empty dream bubble, which is not helpful to us. So Himiko did some research and said that found out that dream bubbles are built on a core of memories. So she's figured out that she needs the core of memories, and for some reason she figures that Misha, the bellboy, the little blue bellboy that's friends with Clocky and stuff, that we've seen a couple times. He helped us get to Golden Hour when we ended up in when we first went into the dreamscape, and we ended up in the wrong place in the Reverie under construction. He helped us like focus and get the Golden Hour. He guided us. So he's been there a couple times. We saw him with Acheron once, which I meant to go back and check because I think that's the only one I have a question on, but I'd already taken so many notes. I didn't have time to go check some stuff. So he's just popped up a couple times, and if you remember, he helped us in Dreamflux Reef, guiding us around and helping us find Robin and assorted people. So we've seen him a couple times. So why did Himiko think he's important? Well, she knows something. She's figured something out. She's figured something out, and we'll figure it out by the end. So for whatever reason, her guess was right, and when we brought Misha to the dream bubble, it works. Now, presumably, we can't. I thought we pick up the dream bubble. We don't, based on the ending of this. We bring Misha to the Watchmaker's final resting place, and just experience the dream bubble there with him. That will become relevant that we are there. So, how does this work? Misha goes through this. He's like, I remember this place. This seems familiar to me. I think I've been here before. And Himiko encourages him to go through it and try to remember. Because Himiko really wants him to remember, because she figures that's the key to things. And, well, she's going to be right. But, so he's going through and he's remembering his past. And he's remembering, we're like, oh, right, this is where we found our first information about Mikhail. And he's like, I know a Mikhail, that's my grandfather. And he starts telling us about his grandfather, how his grandfather was a seafarer, because apparently he grew up on an ocean planet, and his grandfather was like his adopted father. He was raised by his grandparents, and his grandfather was a seafarer who went out on the ocean and did all these adventures, and always told Misha about all the cool adventures, and it really inspired a sense of adventure in Misha, right? He loved it. I mean, so much so that he comes up with um, essentially his fantasy adventure, which is Clocky and Miss Mirror and the origami birds and him on a ship just like his grandfather was, sailing the seas and checking his compass and you know, finding the new world. And you're like, this is a little odd because even Misha's like, didn't I grow up here in Dreamflux Reef? What ocean world? And we're like, well, that doesn't sound like Mikhail the Watchmaker. And Himiko's like, well, Mikhail's kind of a common name. It's probably somebody else. It is. His grandfather is not the Watchmaker. Okay? But his grandfather is an adventurer, essentially. He's trying to save his planet by going out on adventures and finding the land on his planet, because his planet like is like he described this planet like a fountain planet, and the water just kept spewing water, and so they had a real problem with the land going away. But he also oh wait, is that too far? No, I don't think so. He also brings up that his grandfather like he's got this sense of adventure from him. His grandfather told him to wait for a train, and his grandfather knew about the train because they had once come to fix a disaster on the planet caused by a star. And you're like, this sounds like the Trailblaze. Okay, so Misha is remembering these dreams from his childhood, where he was with his grandpa, and then he left on a train, and you're like, And then Misha's like, I remember the sound that I was supposed to wait for was the train whistle, so that I could get on the train. And then you have to put together a puzzle piece so that you can follow him in the memory space to see where he went for that train whistle, right? It's all kind of like, what is going on? Like, there's some pieces that line up with stuff we know, like the train and the Trailblaze, and there's some pieces that don't. Like, Mikhail's clearly not the Watchmaker here. What's going on? So you put together the puzzle piece, and you have to use a puzzle piece that you got when you the first time in the beginning of the story, when you came to the child's dream. And I wanted to look that up to see what that was, because I didn't remember that. But but again, I took all these notes at the time. So you put the final piece of the puzzle in, you do the puzzle, and then you get to go to the secret room in the dream bubble, right? And this one really triggers Misha's memory. It is the room of clocks. And Misha's like, I remember this. This is where I always waited on my grandfather for him to come back from his adventures. And I always was in here with the clocks, and it's where I learned how to, fix clocks and do watch work and stuff. And then he's like, oh, I remember this was my home. And I think March is like, oh, you mean the room? And he's like, no, not the room. The dream bubble itself is my home. And you're like, what? And then Himiko, because she has already figured this out. Remember, she's the one coaxing the memories out of him. She's the one who figured he was the core to all this. She's like, okay, you guys know how only Kalis can see Clocky? And it's like, yeah. And so but then turns out the whole Trailblaze gang can see Clocky because we saw him in Dreamflux Reef. And she's like, so it's kind of like only the Trailblaze can see the cartoon characters, like they were left behind as a note to future Trailblaze, right? Which is what the Watchmaker said is supposed to be the dream bubble, right? His thing left behind only for future Trailblaze. And then she's like, have y'all ever seen anybody interact with Misha besides us? And it's like, ooh. Misha is essentially one of the cartoon characters, which also means he's who's been left behind by the Watchmaker. For us, he's the dream bubble. That's what he meant. He grew up he's the dream bubble. He's the legacy left behind. And what happened is they imply that, well, we know he left the dream bubble and then he kind of forgot. But they imply that he left because when the train arrived in Penacony, he heard it from the dream bubble and he left, just like he remembered doing from his childhood, right? So it was just he did it again. And then he forgot. You know, he came and met us, but he forgot because he was supposed to stay put. Now, this blows my mind because it works, right? It's a pretty good mind blow. The only thing I could think of is that he's with Acheron. And in that scene, I'm trying to remember when like the people are there's like a gang pissed off at Acheron and you use clockwork on them to make them go away. That's where you actually get the clockwork ability. You see Clocky, and Acheron's like, I don't see a Clocky, but I kind of feel that something's there. And then Clocky says, here, use the clockwork powers. And you use the clockwork powers and you calm the crowd down and they leave and she thanks you. Now, Misha's standing right next to her, and I thought she acknowledged Misha and talked to them. But what I wanted to do is go back to that scene and replay it and see if she did. Because she might not have. She might not have. And the crowd might not have reacted to Misha either. But I'd love to see that. I want to see if it's like a plot hole, or if they're going to say, well, Acheron's special and she can see him too, or if like really they didn't interact with him and you just didn't catch it. You just didn't notice. Because that could be very easily explained with Acheron has crazy special abilities. Maybe she can see him too. You know, they could wave that away. They could find a reason. But I did rack my brain, and I haven't, racked it. I only have so much brain to rack. But yeah, I don't think he's interacted with anyone. Like, he's the bellboy. You think we would check in, and they would say, and here's Misha to take your bags. Or here's Misha to take you to your room. That didn't happen. That didn't happen. He's not been, like, ever doing the bellboy stuff. He's just showed up in random places to help us. And only a few times. And you're like, oh my god, he's one of the cartoon characters. And then you find, I guess, maybe it implies that all the cartoon characters are from the dream bubble, but I don't think so. I think it was just him and maybe Clocky. Like the Clocky only he can see. Or maybe even just him, because like the birds, I mean, that they're all dream characters and they're in the dreamscape. So is it that crazy to think that like the Watchmaker made these characters for his special dream bubble and also made them for the rest of the dream? It's not that crazy. So I think it's just like Misha was supposed to stay put, probably with Clocky, and he didn't. And the rest of them are just there. But but to be fair, if they all came out of the dream bubble, it would explain why only Trailblazer can see them, So maybe, that needs maybe a little further explanation, or it's just maybe like a fun thing. Maybe they did it for game mechanics. I don't know. So, what does this mean? What does it mean that he's a dream bubble and that he's what the Watchmaker left behind for us? Well, he now has his memories back, and he kind of explains it. I'm reading these notes. I told you I took way too many notes. So, he tells you that he is indeed what the Watchmaker left behind for the future Trailblaze in the dream bubble. And he tells you that what he is essentially the Watchmaker's childhood memories. So he has all the memories of the Watchmaker. He is the Watchmaker. He is Mikhail, right? Because the version that Mikhail left behind was the version of when he was first inspired to Trailblaze, when he was sitting at home in that clock room, dreaming up the adventures that he'd go on with his imaginary friends on the ship that, just like his grandfather. And so since he was a kid in that little fantasy with all his, with Clocky and Miss Muir and the birds, the dream the memory little version of himself he leaves behind is a kid, is Misha. And Misha reveals that his name is Mikhail Char Legwork, and Mikhail and Char, Misha, should be Misha. I don't know if that's an English thing. They should have named his grandma Sharon, and then it would have worked, Misha, but they didn't. So he got his name when he was adopted by his grandparents or something. They gave them their names, Mikhail and Char, and then Legwork, I guess, is their last name. I don't know. It was a little odd, but you're right. He got his name from his grandfather. They kind of hinted that Char was the name of his grandmother, I guess. and so they called him. You know how you like call, little Timmy, it's not Timothy, it's Timmy, right? So it's not Mikhail Char, it's Misha. So he is the Watchmaker's memory. And then he kind of apologizes for leaving the bubble and not helping us. And Himiko actually says, you did help. You instinctively helped Kalis when he got lost. And she kind of just throws in there that, like, when Sparkle knocked us out and we ended up in the child's dream, she's like, you must have been the one that brought main character in Firefly to this specific dream when Sparkle knocked you out. And I guess maybe that's like, because if you go to sleep in a dream, you end up in the Dreamflux Reef or something. That's how Sleepy works. That's how the dormancy works. The death meme works. So maybe, somehow, I don't know. It kind of was a hand wave to me, but that's what Himiko said. That's how they're resolving that plot point. It wasn't a special power of Sparkle to send us here. She just sent us to sleep to see what would happen. And apparently it was Misha who brought us here, but somehow still didn't remember and then left. we'll just gloss over that. So then he tells us, he's the Watchmaker. And so he's like, okay, now I can tell you what I was supposed to tell you. Now I can tell you what the Watchmaker left to the future Trailblaze. And he says, I can tell you what the legacy is. And he apologizes that the legacy is not riches. That was just part of the bait to get people here. It's his humble things, because he's just spent his whole life trailblazing. So all he has to do is leave his desire to save Penacony. That's part of it. That's what this whole thing was. He's still trying to save Penacony with his last act, right? He couldn't save the Watchmaker could not save Penacony, right? He couldn't stop the family from using the Stellaron. He tried his whole life. He couldn't. He was at the end of his life. So he left this dream bubble with his memories and with instructions to his friend to try to get the future Nameless here to see if they'd maybe do it. He said he won't make the choices for you. It's the Trailblaze. It's your Trailblaze. You can choose whether to save Penacony or not. But this was the last thing he could do, so he had to do it. And it was really this whole watching this scene back, watching just this whole section back, and even more as we go on. I mean, it made me tear up. It was so touching once you know all the little pieces that they're talking about. Once you know that, oh, he's talking about his grandfather, and he got right, and he's the Watchmaker, and he got the will to Trailblaze from his grandfather because his grandfather always went on adventures, and then he wanted to go on adventures, and then his grandfather knew about the train, so he told him, you know what, the train will come one day, and because that's how the train works, and you'll get on it. And his grandfather encouraged him to do it, and then he goes on the train, and then he ends up in Penacony, right? And then he ends up saving Penacony, and now we're back here trying to finish the job. Like, it's a really cool thing, right? At least I thought it was. But we'll get into a little more of that. It's as it goes, because it really focuses. As you get further, it just gives you more and more info until you really It's almost like every time you get more info, you want to go back and put it back, put the puzzle pieces back in that you were missing. So he leaves. So that's his like that's part of his legacy, is his just request to save Penacony. And then he says, as far as what else, I only have two things to give you. I'll give you the compass that my grandfather gave me when I left for the train. And he told, he's like, that compass got him through all of his adventures and always guided him back home. He gave it to me when I went for the train, and I've used that compass my entire life. While I was on the train, while I was here, it's seen so many good people, and it's always been reliable to me. So he leaves it to you. Now you have it. And he leaves you his hat. He leaves you the hat, which he says he got from the navigator when he was on the train. And then he just leaves it there. He also says that navigator taught him the lesson that trailblazing expedition will never end, which I think was also brought up with his grandfather. The adventure never ends or something. Yeah, I think his grandfather told him to always just keep moving forward, and you'll get where you're going. That's what you do. Because he had to leave his grandfather and didn't want to. He's like, his grandfather, you can't go on this expedition with me. You're going on the train, right? Just keep moving forward and you'll get where you go. Get where you're going to. Right, the trailblazing expedition will never end. And then he's like, all right, I tell you, you know what? Make your choice if you're going to help or not. And if you are, come follow me through this hallway, and we'll continue on. So of course you follow him through the hallway. I made a little joke about, I told Himiko I didn't want to, and she's like, "Ah, cute." Me and March do, so deal with it. But so you follow him down the hallway, and when you go down the hallway, it plays Mikhail's life story, the Watchmaker's life story. It just plays through it. It's a series of, like, I don't know, like Art Deco, just kind of black and gold pictures. It's a very stylized representation of his life. And if I had thought about it, I would have actually had that ready for you. But I don't. I got the cutscene ready. But it's not that important. It's just a very stylized, like, slides of his life, and you hear him with somebody in each stage, and it goes like he's a little boy with his grandfather, and it's the last time he sees his grandfather. His grandfather encourages him to get on the train, right? Then you see him as a young man with the navigator Falcon Almundsen, and in the impression picture he's got the hat on, and it's when Almundsen, that was my beep, it's when Almundsen is like, did you fix this watch? And he's the kid, and he's like, yeah. And he's like, you're the new mechanic, you're good at this, right? Then you see the next scene where he is a man, maybe our age at this point, 20s, 30s, something like that. And he's with a different navigator, and he's saying he's going to leave the train to stay on Azdana, which becomes Penacony, with Rosalina and Tiernan. And when he goes, Granholm gives him the hat. And because the implication is that, and part of the picture kind of shows you, the implication is that Falcon Admundsen, the guy who had the hat on, has passed away. And Granholm, because right now there's a new navigator, and Granholm says he left this hat to his best student, and I guess it's time to give it to you. So there's the hat. So the compass is from his grandfather, and the hat is from a previous navigator, like the other mentor in his life. And that's what he's passing on to us. Then you see him as like a middle-aged man, and he's talking with a really young Micah, and he's going to the front lines, the frontier, to try to help Penacony, which they told us about in the story. That's when they went behind his back and turned on the Stellaron. Then he's an old man with... And he also tells Micah that if he doesn't come back, Micah's the next Watchmaker. I'm sure that'll come up later. He's then an old man with Gallagher, and he tells him the plan. He's like, you know what? I've still got a plan to save this place. What if we have a big festival, and we send out invitations to all these different factions, and we'll use the Watchmaker's legacy as bait to get them all here. And then Gallagher's like, you think that you're just like good all out of front on the family? You're crazy. And he's like, just make sure you send one to the Astral Express. And then the last scene is he's on his deathbed with Clocky. And he's you can hear it in his voice, he's barely there. And he says, take me to Dreamflex Reef, which is his final resting place. That's where he is with the dream bubble, right? Take me to Dreamflex Reef, and he tells Clocky that he's got to take a rest, and Clocky's really sad because he knows something's up, and he's like, you know what, Clocky, I won't be going on. This is the end for me. And Clocky's like, but you said the Trailblaze would never end. And he's like, it won't. You'll do it now. Right? And Clocky's like, but I've been just following you. And he's like, you know what? That's how Trailblaze works. It's your Trailblaze to take now. And then they just randomly explain how clockwork, the mind control powers you have works. It's like clockwork. He's like, do you ever wonder what clockwork was, Clocky? And Clocky's like, well, I don't know. And he says, sometimes people just need a nudge to move forward in their life. Sometimes they just need a little anger. Sometimes they just need a calm. Sometimes they just need a little happy. Right? It's all the things, all the emotions you can give to people. And he's like, that's what clockwork is. It's the will of the Trailblaze. It's the little nudge to push them forward so they can keep going. I was like, okay, that's cute. I don't know if I buy it, but it's cute. He also tells Clocky a funny story about how Clocky came into his imagination because he always saw the clock on his grandfather's hip, the little pocket watch he had, and he was in the room of clocks and stuff. And so he's like, I always thought that was the coolest thing my grandpa had, and it was always amazing. And then that's when you came to be in my imagination and joined me on my adventures, in my imagination adventures on our ship, the Compass, and all this stuff. And he said, you know what's funny, Clocky? When my grandfather finally gave me that pocket watch, it wasn't a pocket watch, it was a compass. So really, you should have been named Compassy, which I'm really glad he wasn't. And because that word is very awkward, and it gets more awkward the slower you say it. So I'm glad we went with Clocky. But he also is like, and I guess I'm not the Watchmaker, I'm just some nameless, just a Trailblazer, because right, he's not doing, it wasn't about watches. It was never about watches. He just had that part wrong. So I thought that was cute. Then, so you see his whole life, and it's, I don't know, I took so many notes. So I've told you the whole thing now. And you just really get this picture of this man who was inspired by his grandfather, then inspired to help Penacony, and then couldn't fix it, couldn't solve it. And so with his last act, his heart still set on saving Penacony, he leaves it to the future adventurers, right? Because he knows this long line of adventurers, the legacy of the Trailblaze, right, is what's gonna save things. Is what, right? He's really a firm believer in that adventurous spirit because he got it from his grandfather. That's what led him here. That's how he, So in one way, the legacy of his grandfather trying to save his planet is now the thing that's trying to save Penacony. And so he can't finish it, so he leaves it to the future Trailblazers. Because he's like, they will come back, they will have the adventurous spirit, and maybe they'll save this place like I want it to. That's it. That's his final play before he dies, man. And so right, seeing his whole life and seeing how the legacy just goes through, and you see the history, and now it's come to you, right? Now you're that future Trailblazer, and you're gonna try and save Penacony. It really, I don't know, it really gets to me. It's a story that really hits me. It's probably like a personal thing. You might just be like, oh, that's a story. But it gets to me. It hits me. So then we have, there's only a couple scenes left, and then you actually get to play as Misha very briefly. You just walk forward. You're Misha and Clocky, and you're walking towards the wheelchair where he's going to do his resting place. You get up there, and you click on it, and it's like rest under the moonlight. That, which is where his grave was. If you remember, I've showed that the cutscene of it raising up, and the moonlight is like some artificial thing that creates light. It's kind of like the big chorus in Golden Hour. The really, you know, these just kind of cool things in the dreamscape. And that's when he has his little final conversation with Clocky. Oh, that's actually when he tells him about the clockwork thing. It wasn't in the Compassy was in the life recap. This little part is where he tells him about where he passes on the Trailblaze to Clocky, and he explains the nudge. I jumped the gun on that. It was just the Compassy joke. Then you go to this scene. He's sitting down for his final rest, and he passes the Trailblaze on to Clocky, and he tells him about the clockwork, and it's all about the Trailblaze. And then, as he's finishing that conversation with Clocky, this cutscene plays, and I'm just gonna play it. I hope I don't get like pinged on YouTube or something. I think for games we're okay, because I don't want to put my face on it. So I've got, and like I said, I'll link the video down in the description. But this cutscene plays. Hopefully I've got the audio right, and I can do this properly. So he's talking with Clocky as Misha, but the Misha is just a representation of him. He's actually an old man at this point, right? It's just he's in the dreamscape. I guess he can look like whatever he wants. But this is on his deathbed. This is final act, and he's finishing the conversation with Clocky. And this is what plays. I'll try to be quiet during it, but no promises. And just remember, this whole setup was this whole flashback was for us to have the response from the Watchmaker to give to Sunday, when Sunday was like, let's just trap everybody in the dream and take away their freedom and take away their lives, but they'll be nice and happy. And Firefly said, no, you're taking away their chance to overcome their troubles. And Himiko says, Kalis, tell him our response, just like Mikhail said. Okay, remember, that's what the setup of this whole flashback was. So here is Misha, Mikhail, Watchmaker, old man, but as a kid, in his dreams, with Clocky, going to his final resting place. I think that's the proper context. And then this happens.
Clocky's hands spin around non-stop, indicating confusion, frustration, and weakness. But ultimately, people still need to move forward.
Just like your hands, always pointing ahead. This is where my journey ends. From now on, it is your path to walk.
Trailblazing means taking paths your predecessors forswore, and venturing even further. The Penacony in Mikhail's dreams does not belong to order.
So there you go. You see that, man? I meant to turn off the little annotations. You can see the guy's thing in the corner. I refreshed it, so it didn't. I almost had that perfect. I almost had that perfect. But so it finishes by transitioning from him going to his final resting place to us being at his final resting place, accepting his legacy, picking up the hat, and then the flashback ends. We go to Sunday and we give our response. It is I got some chills, man. It is a touching moment. Once they build all that context, it's something. And I just want to read. I wrote down specifically what he says because it happens pretty fast. Our response to Sunday is that and this is presumably what Mikhail told us, right? Because remember, he's talking and then we're talking. Presumably, Mikhail finishes with the same lines. Trailblazing means taking paths your predecessors forswore and venturing even further. That's what it means. And then our official response, the Penacony in Mikhail's dreams does not belong to order, which is who Sunday worships. Not harmony, order. And a kind of dark, evil version of order that is total control of others. That's what Sunday's arguing for, because he's like, if I have total control over others, then I can prevent all pain and suffering. Right? He'll kill reality, but reality's the bad stuff anyways, right? And if you notice at the very end, there was that purple lady made out of puzzle pieces. That is Shipe. That is the harmony, right? So, not only did we tell Sunday off, but Shipe, the Eon, looked our way. She smiled at us. Because we stood up for the harmony when Sunday, who is the family's leader, probably like second in command under, I mean, technically like all the 5 family heads are probably equal, but the Oak's kind of the top family and the Dream Master is running everything. So, and Sunday is like Dream Master's right-hand man. So here's the leadership of Penacony, who is supposed to be following the harmony, who has abandoned the harmony and started worshiping the order and following it. And we stand up and say, we stand up for freedom, right? Because that's a really big part of the Trailblaze, the adventurous spirit. You have the choice to adventure where you want. You choose when you get on the train. You choose when you get off. Nobody tells anybody what to do, right? It's really it's a very much free will type of path to follow, and opposed to the order, much like the harmony is. It wants the good parts of the order, but not the bad parts of the order where you're controlling people. That's not quite right. It's supposed to be, right? We talked about this last time with Sunday. It's strong, uphold the weak, not strong, control the weak. So, because of our convictions, we're more aligned with the harmony than Sunday is. In this case, the Trailblaze is more aligned with the harmony than order is. So Shipe smiles on us. She looks at us. And Sunday's pissed. Sunday's pissed. He's like, for that Eon to show up now she shows up at Penacony, right? Because he doesn't even like her. You know, this whole time they've just been pretending to like the harmony. And he's like, no, he wants order to take over. And so he's like, what's the harmony even doing here for? Like, and I think he gives a couple, you gotta remember, this is just like Belobog. This is just like Belobog, where, oh my god, this video is not supposed to be long today. It was just like Belobog, where Cocolia had abandoned preservation, and embraced destruction. And we carry the will of preservation because we don't want the town to be destroyed. And Kleepoth looks our way. And we get the lance of the ancestors. I forget what it's called. Which is the thing that's supposed to be an artifact that's passed down among the leadership. So Cocolia's line. But they give it to us because we're the ones upholding preservation. Cocolia's not anymore. All right. That's how we got the lance. So here, once again, we're upholding the path more than the people in charge are, and Shipe looks our way. Right? When it's like emanators are formed when the eons look your way. Right? It's not just that, oh, you know, she looked at us. It's an important, that means like a piece of power is going to come to you. Right? Or at least they're going to help you in that moment. Like, it's a big deal. Remember, like, Duke Inferno just wanted nothing more than destruction to finally look his way and acknowledge like all the bad stuff he did, and people were like, "Dude, you're chump change. You're not cool enough." Right? Like this is what it was. So Sunday is pissed that where's she looking over here? He's like, "Is it because of the resonance of the Trailblaze legacy, right? Like the old Trailblaze with the new Trailblaze is so in alignment, so in harmony? Is it because you guys are just so aligned with each other right now that it's strong enough to draw the Eon's attention? And Himiko offers one more example, and she says, perhaps Shippei just showed up to on behalf of the two fallen Eons, right? Because both Trailblaze and Order are no more. Order got absorbed into Harmony, so as a fallen Eon, doesn't exist anymore. And Trailblaze, well, I'm not sure we know what happened to it, but he's gone. He's dead. I mean, I don't know what he is. Maybe he was a big rock. I don't know, but he's gone. So they're both fallen Eons, and so Himiko's like, maybe Shippei showed up on behalf of the fallen Eons to see whose path would lead Penacony, right? Because the Harmony's supposed to be leading, and right now we have a competition between Order and Trailblaze. Which one's gonna guide them towards the Harmony? Are we gonna have Harmony led by Order, or are we gonna have Harmony led by the Trailblaze, which is freedom, right? Because technically you could be harmonious in either one, right? I mean, if you think about it, you could be harmonious for freedom, you could be harmonious in control. So Himiko's like, maybe she just showed up to see who actually has the better plan, who has the better thought, who has the better philosophy, right? Because you gotta remember, this is the end of Sunday's giant monologue about why his philosophy of controlling everyone is better, right? He's really trying to make a case how he can fix everyone's problems by shoving them in the dream and getting rid of their choices so they never make bad choices. So Sunday's like, oh, you think that's what it is? Fine. On behalf of myself and the Dream Master and all 107,000 members of the Oak family, I officially invite you, the Trailblazers, to the Charmony Festival, and not just the audience. You will be on stage. You will be on stage, and we will show, since the whole future of Penacony's at stake, we'll just show everybody who's better, and we'll see. And he walks off. And he walks off. And you're like, oh shit. And then the game pops up a screen and it says, you now have Harmony Trailblazer. Because this is just like Belobog. And when Kleepoth looked our way, we got the Lance and we got a preservation path. Well, Shippei's looked our way and we have the hat, and the hat has become our Harmony path. And you get, and this is why we didn't, this is the game stuff at the end that I talked about. That's what it was. They show you that you have Harmony Trailblazer. You can switch him to Harmony. So he starts with the Destruction, the Bat, right? And then you unlock the Preservation. Now you have Harmony, and it shows you his abilities. They're actually really cool. It's all about like helping your team break the enemy's weakness, the toughness bar, so they go into a stun state faster. And if his ultimate gives everybody a buff where they can do extra damage to a weakness broken enemy, essentially they can use their break effect to do additional damage on top of any attack they do to a downstate enemy. And they even let you play a little trial to see how it works, and it's really cool. He's like, because all the images, I should have pulled up the images. All the images are like really fancy and cool looking. I might be able to get one real quick because I had it on the screen for a while. But it's because he's got the hat and he's like dancing, and his animations are like he's dancing with the hat and doing. It's very like, you remember we've seen Aventurine do all sorts of cool stuff. That's kind of what these are. Here, I think I can do this. It'll be a little cringe for a second. Oh, it was mega cringe for a second. There we go. And then we'll turn this back on. So yeah. So you can, right, this is it. Let me mute it. And then, this is mega cringe. That way you can get the stuff up there. So I wanted to show you the art really, but so I've kind of messed it up. There it is. That's what I wanted to show you. So right, it's got the art, and he's like right, he's debonair, and he's got the hats. And my cam's still in the way, but look, if I take the cam off, I got. Oh, you can see it because I turned my cam off. Aren't I smart? So we could look at the art. There you go. It's beautiful, and all his animations and stuff. All these are references to the different things in Penacony, and if we skim a little bit forward and try to, can I see the trial real quick? Oh, is this mega cringe trying to do all this? If we go to the trial, maybe we can see some of these animations. Or not. Oh wait, I said there's one. There you go. Here's his ultimate. We can see this one. So right, he does his cool pose. And I took way too long making notes today. I didn't have time to do all this stuff. Right, he gets to do the little dance with Clocky. Right, he does the high five. Oh, it's so cool. It's so cool. So right, that's the harmony path. You get all the riz, you get all the swag, you get the hat, and you get all these cool dance moves and all this Penacony flavored stuff. It's super cool. It's super cool. And it's also like where some of that stuff from the trailer, the Chapter 3 2.0 trailer, where you see like Trailblazer dancing with a cool hat and stuff. That's the hat. That's the hat. So it's another long ass video. I'm really sorry for that, but it was really hype, and it was really touching. And this is probably this is the big moment I've been waiting for. You know, getting the hat and getting the new path. God, and they just watching it, like I said, it really struck me watching it back, and just how much emotion it had to it, of this little kid inspired by his grandfather, and then that inspired his travels, which got him all the way to Penacony, and he inspired everyone on Penacony. He saved Penacony. He got him through the prison revolt so that they could be free and make their own choices. And then he helped them establish themselves, and he helped make the dream. He's like credited as the creator of the dream that everybody has. The things that, you know, that they can live in, and just give everybody hope. You know, and of course the family's kind of corrupted it to like make it obsessive, escapism instead of just hopeful vacation time and living fun experiences. But right, he's just always been there, and he's always he's still trying to save Penacony, and he leaves the legacy to you because he couldn't do it, but he knew more Trailblazers would come, and he's like, okay, it's your turn. You get to do it. It's now. I've done everything I can. My last thing is to leave it to you, just like my grandpa left me the compass. Right. And just like, what was his name? Admonson gave me this hat. The Trailblaze experience never ends. The Trailblaze expedition never ends. Right? It just gets passed on. So he's passed it on to us. And to see if we can fix it. To see if we can take on the family and seal this Stellaron and save Penacony. And it was touching, man. It was touching. It's a moving section of the story. At least I thought so. And we get a cool character. So now every time you use that character or ever think about it, it's attached to this really moving story and the legacy of the Trailblaze and the harmony of past, present, and future Trailblazers. It's cool shit. So I had to waffle on it for way too long, even though I took all these goofy notes and I was already super late today. Oh, shoot. So that's all I got to say. It was awesome. The next little bit, I may actually just keep rolling, because I think based on like our time, we've got like we didn't make a lot of progress today because we did all this stuff with a Harmony Trailblazer, but I think we've got like 3.5 hours or something left if you just like autoplay the content. So we could, I might just go through it. We might have some more of these captain's logs soon. Tomorrow there shouldn't be one, but because I might just need to finish this story. I'm having such a good time with it. But staying up late, taking all these notes is not helping. But there you go. There you go. That's all I got to say. Now I'm just waffling about schedules. So I hope you enjoyed my commentary on this awesome part of the story. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope you enjoyed listening, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Whatever it is you're gonna do, I hope it goes well for you, and I hope you have good things for you. Hope don't do well at bad things. Don't go rob the bank. But what? But yeah, I hope you have a wonderful rest of everything, and I'll catch you in the next one. I'll see you soon. Thanks for hanging. Catch you later.